All right, let's talk about Roquan Smith, formerly of the Chicago Bears, now of the Ravens, who's had a very interesting career so far. If you look at his Pro Football Focus grades, you're not going to be as impressed with him as if you don't. He is someone who PFF has never been a massive fan of. And again, there's two ways to look at this. Some people will look at this and say, oh, maybe he is someone who isn't quite as good as I perceived him to be. Perhaps he makes some splash plays, but doesn't do the little things as consistently as you would like, which means that he maybe is a bit overrated. That's one way you could look at it. The other way you could look at it is maybe PFF's grading system, he is just an exception to that rule, and actually he is good, and the PFF grading system is flawed, which could be the case as well. After all, I think we all kind of know the PFF grading system is more closer to a batting average than it is a slugging percentage. I think I would say it's definitely something where guys who make a lot of splash plays maybe don't get a ton of credit in terms of PFF grades, but tend to get more credit in terms of general perception, which is the case with Smith. So several things could be true. What's fascinating is let's just look at the grading system itself, and you see that last year was his highest graded season, but it was also split between two teams, Chicago and Baltimore. And if you look at his splits in between those two teams, look at right here, this is his game in and game out PFF grades, but the two things I've circled, the one on the top is going to be his grades for Chicago. He averaged a 52.6 grades, so he was on track to have one of his worst seasons, according to PFF. But then when he goes to Baltimore, he has an 85.9 grade. We're talking elite numbers in admittedly a small sample size, just half a season, but PFF was a massive fan of what he did in Baltimore. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to assume that PFF at least knows something here. They tend to be pretty good. I've talked about before how typically when I disagree with a PFF grade, I go back and I rewatch the tape and realize, even if I don't fully agree, that they were making some sense at the very least. So I'm going to assume that there isn't just nothing that's not nothing, and there is something there. So then I'm going to wonder, what did Baltimore do to really unlock his full potential? Well, going over to this play, I kind of wonder if it's as simple as just being in a situation where he had talent around him allowed him to kind of maximize what he was doing, and it gave him some more favorable situations than he's used to getting. Like, as of right now, you have a wide receiver who's going up to block Roquan Smith, which is a mismatch, right? This is a mismatch. Smith should be able to win this matchup. Hopefully for Cincinnati, the fact that they're surprising Smith a little bit will help with this. But at the end of the day, it still is a receiver going up against a linebacker. Whereas when he was with Chicago, you're just not getting these situations. You're not getting these types of favorable matchups. Teams can just run away from you and they're fine. Watch how on display, though, Smith is able to just run over the wide receiver and get in position to help make that tackle. And it makes you wonder, is it possible with Smith that he's just in more favorable situations right now? And that's why we've seen a massive jump, is because teams aren't basically using their whole game plan to try and stop him. Like, this is another example where what's going to happen is a screen pass to the bottom of the screen, and the player who's really supposed to come into the play right here is going to be Roquan Smith. That's the guy that Cincinnati is trying to run this play away from, to get the ball to Jamar Chase's hands, and hopefully he can run past Smith, which is, again, still a favorable situation for Cincinnati, but you probably would like it to not be Roquan Smith, who has this open space and can make stuff happen. However, as you see, it's going to be a quick pass to Chase, and it was I thought, well defended by the Baltimore players in front that allowed Smith to take advantage. The guys in front who were, getting blocked did a good job at not giving a free lane for Chase, so then Roquan could do what he does well and come over and make a play. Whereas in Chicago, he just wasn't given those opportunities, and so would get losses on his resume, but there's only so much you can do as a single player. That's just a theory. I don't know if that's the case or not, but it logically seems like it makes sense for me. But I also feel like I've just watched him play football and just get better, and I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know if it's some sort of coaching thing or what, but it feels like he's just doing things better as well. Like, something like this is a good example where it's going to be a zone coverage play, and you're going to see that, his job is that's the zone he's supposed to cover. The one in white, that's where he's supposed to cover, and there's going to be a receiver who eventually gets sort of, past that zone. Right when his play begins, he doesn't bite on that initial route as he could have and gotten himself out of position, and I feel like sometimes in Chicago, he would get himself out of position in coverage. Not like constantly, but it would happen. Now, usually his issues when there were issues in Chicago were in the run defense. Like, his coverage was, as a whole, good when he played for the Bears. Even PFF was a fan of that when he would have issues, which he would. I went back and watched him tape. There were some issues, but usually in the running game, the coverage, I thought was good with Chicago, but I think even took a next step and became even better in Baltimore. Something like this, you see how he's keeping his eyes on the quarterback right here, who's going to try to throw it past him. But as you see, Smith reads this play so well, he is able to get the interception. It was a bit of an ill-advised throw as well. Not going to deny that. But again, it's kind of one of those things where when he's now in position to kind of do what he does well, he can now also still do the things he did well in Chicago and even be better at those situations. Maybe it's a confidence thing as well. I don't know, but it's working a lot better. Like, again, something like this, a perfect example of what I think has really kind of unleashed him in this system where you have, it's going to be a double team and someone's going to get off the double team to then get up to block Smith. However, right when this play begins, you see that this is not available to be a good situation for Denver. I mean, the double team, it worked in terms of getting the interior defensive lineman out of the way, but no one can now get up to the next level to make a play. And so because of that, this is where Roquan Smith comes in. Because, I should mention with Roquan that yes, he's in a favorable situation right now, but that doesn't necessarily mean that his PFF grade is just going to inherently be better. PFF doesn't just grade you better because you're in a good situation and did what you're supposed to do. You have to also make the good play on top of it. But when he's in these situations, it kind of unlocks what makes him special and allows him to then go in and make good plays. Also, just to give the shout out, it was Broderick Washington who was the guy who made that play by Baltimore, the interior defensive lineman, to not allow someone to get off and block someone else. But yeah, anyways, watch what Smith's going to do in this spot. Watch him run in, and he's able to, do a good job at making that tackle. He still has to make the tackle. He could get ran over, right? Like, he still has to, yes, he's been in more favorable situations now. He still has to make the most of those favorable situations, but he has been. So that's a big thing, and I think that's probably the thing I would point to when it comes to Roquan and how successful he's been is I think when he's been in this situation, it just allowed him to do what he does well, I'm going to make a comparison, but I don't want to disrespect Roquan by comparing him to this player. But, I think about Devin White in Tampa Bay and sort of how when things have been going great in Tampa Bay, when he's in a good situation, he can kind of make the most of it and make these splash plays and do what he does well and make these highlight reel level plays somewhat consistently like we saw in that playoff run for Tampa Bay. I think Roquan Smith's a much better player than Devin White is, all things considered, but kind of a similar style, I would say, to where he's at his best when he's in a good situation, when he can be sort of, unblocked at times and make the most of those things, and you can take advantage of his athleticism and stuff like that. I think that's where you really see him kind of reach his full potential, and instead of just making the occasional highlight reel level play, he can make consistent highlight reel level plays. It's just a theory. We'll have to see it in a full season before we can really say, but there's absolutely a chance that he could be, at his best in a Baltimore uniform. But that's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.